Welcome to the January 2023 edition of City Connection. City Connection is the live television program from the Community Media Center with Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss. With the Community Media Center, I'm your host, Starla McDermott. Today on City Connection, we will be joined by John Gorney from the Grand Rapids Department of Public Works. Later on in the show, we will provide time for you for questions and comments with Mayor Bliss and with John, so stay tuned for that. To take part in the conversation, you can send your questions or comments to cityconnection@grcmc.org, through Twitter @GRTV Access, or by commenting at the GRTV Facebook page. City Connection, a collaboration between the Community Media Center and the City of Grand Rapids, is broadcasting live today, January 9th, 2023, here on the Community Access Television Channel 24, and live streaming at therepedian.org and at GRTV's Facebook page. We will be rebroadcasting the program throughout the month on cable channel 25. And now in the studio with me is Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss. Mayor Bliss, welcome again for the first City Connection of 2023.
Yes, Happy New Year. I think we can still say that, even though it's 9 days in.
I officially say you can say it for 30 more days.
Oh, good.
That's what I say.
All right.
So, is there anything new going on in the city for January that is exciting to share?
The beginning of the year tends to be a little bit slower, at least around the City Commission table. So we do a lot of work at the end of the year to finish up kind of end of year approvals, and so typically we have pretty full agendas in November and December.
Right.
It gets a little bit lighter in January and February. Very often it's more typical technical stuff that we're doing before we get into the city budget. So the city budget will start in March.
Okay.
We have to have that approved by the end of May, and so typically March through the end of the May, we tend to be a whole lot busier as we work on city budget issues.
Okay.
And then, in May, before we finalize our budget, we have a budget hearing, and we make sure that we're letting folks know what's in the budget that the city manager proposes. So
Okay.
I always remind people that how we're set up here at the city is city manager does the budget, presents it to the city commission, and then over the course of about 2 months, we review the city budget, make any changes that we want until it has to be approved, and then under the law, we have to pass a balanced budget, and we have to have it passed by the end of May, and then it has a July 1 start.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So tomorrow is the first City Commission meeting of 2023, and we just want to give everybody a heads up that they are starting a new schedule. So the first meeting of every month will be at 2 p.m. versus 7 p.m.
Yes.
So that will be tomorrow, right downtown.
Yeah.
And then the second one will be at 7 o'clock.
Yes. So and pretty much same space. So we'll be in the commission chambers. Both at the 2 p.m. and the 7 p.m. meetings. We do have those 3 commission night outs scheduled. So every 3 months or every quarter, we're going to go out into the neighborhoods, and so we'll rotate those around for second and third wards.
Okay.
So those will also be noticed, and we'll make sure folks know about that. But yeah, so tomorrow's our first 2 p.m. Years ago, we used to do 2 p.m. meetings, and then we moved to 7. Some of the feedback that we heard last year, especially when our commission meetings went late, we had individuals who couldn't stick around to the end of the meeting to give public comment.
Yeah.
It was
like 10, 11 o'clock at night.
At times,
Yeah.
it's pretty late. And,
Right.
we heard from individuals who work second or third shift, or individuals who, they're making dinner with their family and they can't get away in the evenings. So we're hopeful that having it in the afternoon, we'll be able to open up our commission meetings to people who typically can't come in the evenings. And so we'll see. We're going to assess that. And hopefully we'll have more people attend. People who aren't able to come at 7, they'll have more options now.
Right.
I always say, though, there's lots of ways to connect with me and with your elected officials. So city commissioners as well, you can always reach out to us for individual meetings, call us, email us. You don't just have to come to commission meetings to have your voice heard.
Perfect. Okay. So let's talk about some fun stuff going on in our community. I just noticed it over the weekend, but World of Winter has hit. And I think it's kind of cool that we're doing that now. It used to be kind of quiet in the winters, and I think this is like with the third year we've done something cool outside in the winter.
We have. It's been building up over the last several years. So I love World of Winter. I serve on the Downtown Development Authority in Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. DDA is the one that organizes and puts together World of Winter. And, you know, one of the reasons we started World of Winter is, well, a couple of reasons. One, we've said for years that we need to embrace that we're a four-season city.
Right.
You know, winter is a beautiful season, and you don't have to stay inside. You can actually go outside and do fun things.
Right.
You just have to dress appropriately,
Right,
as I say.
Yep.
And so we started World of Winter a few years ago, and each year it's really grown. I think you saw a massive uptick during COVID because so many people were outside anyway.
Yep.
And the feedback we got was so extremely positive that we decided to even build on it and really expand it this year. So you'll see lots of beautiful, large-scale public artworks out. We have events scheduled over the next 60 days, a lot of really fun events outside. This weekend's going to be a busy weekend. You can find a full list of events and the schedule on the DDA website or their Facebook page, but they've also got a lot of attention, so you can, you know, Google World of Winter and you'll find a lot of recent news articles really
Experience
highlighting.
GR did that too. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of outdoor art all over downtown, and then entertainment, and then of course we're gonna have our outdoor dining and things like that. So what is some of the entertainment? Do you know what it is, or?
Yeah, it's a mix. So we have some, you know, silent disco. That's always a fun one. This weekend we have the outside drag show. So I know a lot of people came out for that last year. Last year when we did it, it was freezing. It was a very cold day, but it was still a ton of fun.
Right.
So that was over at the Calder. And then we'll have games at Rose Park Circle. So Hungry Hippos is coming back.
I saw that, yep.
And so there's just tons of music and opportunities to just get out and connect with folks and see shows. This past weekend we had the fire show, and that was really cool. But the interactive art is pretty amazing. So I encourage people to just get out, walk around,
all over,
you know, grab a hot chocolate or something warm to keep in your hands, and just get some fresh air and connect with community and have fun with your family.
And it's everywhere. It's Anabawan Park, as you mentioned, Calder Plaza. There's two things going on at the Blue Bridge.
Yes.
And Gillette Bridge has got something called Talking Heads.
Yes, it's very cool, Talking Heads. And then there's some things we're scheduling down on North Monroe. The House Cards is really cool. That's at Calder.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, it's pretty fascinating. Especially at night when it's lit up.
Right.
But even today, I could see it from my office, and people were still walking around
checking it out. That's cool.
It's cool.
And then there was at the skate park. There's something called the Affinity. Is that going to be an entertainment, or is that art as well, or?
That's a good question. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
We'll have to Google that one.
Yeah,
I just saw that. I was like, ooh, that's curious.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And then something about Messi the Grand River Monster.
Yes.
So that's going to be cool. So that's something I guess that DeVos Place is going to be doing. So
and that is a piece of art that can be moved around, which will be very cool. But yes, it's at DeVos Place. And then as you know, not necessarily completely connected to World of Winter, but there's also outside events over at Studio Park that you can go to. So I encourage people to take a look and get out and just enjoy winter.
Right. Ice skating.
Yep.
Don't forget we can do ice skating. And it says there's going to be 50 plus ice sculptures and around downtown, and also themed window displays throughout downtown too. So
and that's in February as part of Valentine's. So that is really fun. To go and check out all the ice sculptures, and that's a really fun weekend.
It's good to know that we have a lot of fun things that we can do. And I know there's a little bit of discussion. We got a couple more minutes before we go into our next segment. But there is some talks and discussion of having an indoor driving range at Indian Trails. So I think that'll be something cool that people can look forward to.
Yeah, so I should say about that, we're assessing that right now. So we haven't made a final decision, but we are exploring it, and we're looking at, is it a viable option? What would it cost? How much interest is there in that? So hopefully within the next few months we'll make a decision on that. But there's a lot going on in our parks. We have a lot of park projects lined up for this summer. A couple that are really important to me is Plaza Roosevelt, so that's the new park over on Granville.
Okay.
Really want to see that developed, just to add to that incredible development over there on Granville. We're still working on design to redo the MLK Park Lodge.
Okay.
That's been a priority for me and a lot of my colleagues on the commission for years. And then we're hoping to also do some investment and redevelopment at the Roosevelt Park Lodge, in addition to a number of other park improvements that you'll see this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Is there any other cool little tidbits that might be worth sharing with the city that are changes for outdoor, for the park?
You know, the other thing, and I can't remember if we talked about this last month, but I'm excited about it, and that is the new coffee shop over at Veterans Park.
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
Has Heart is helping develop, so that will be a coffee shop. It'll be focused on supporting veterans. There will be some creative space. We'll have outside seating, but it's really going to transform that portion of Veterans Park. So we have this beautiful, small, historic building that has sat there underutilized and really vacant for years, and it'll be transformed into an awesome little coffee shop.
And there'll be art that people could purchase, and those go towards the nonprofit that's going to be kind of manning it for veterans.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That'll be really cool. And do we have a date on when that might open?
Yeah, it's supposed to open this spring.
Perfect.
Yeah, I went by and it looks like they're already starting to do some work on the inside, and so hopefully we'll be able to go out there and do a ribbon cutting. And
That'll be really cool to see inside that. You can just see inside the windows, but you can't really see anything.
It's a beautiful building.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
really nice.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to go on to our next section, and we'll stay tuned.
For over 30 years after humble beginnings as a public access TV station, the Community Media Center has grown to be an active, multi-platform media and technology assistance organization, encouraging and enabling our community to push the creative boundaries. We power a variety of resources, including a music-centered community radio station, WYCE, a community venue with stage and screen at Wealthy Theater, citizen-driven journalism with the Rapidian, a web development team empowering local nonprofits, an education department that trains and broadens students' minds, and a free speech public access television studio, GRTV, where it all began. By introducing audiences to new voices and ideas, we enhance community engagement and create connections between artists and audiences, enriching our city's cultural offerings. We empower and collaborate with platforms and resources accessible to all and used by all. Every free democratic society depends on media, accessible to the community and uncensored by government. The Community Media Center continues this work for the media landscape of today and tomorrow. These platforms and services empower our neighbors to tell their stories and explore the richness of culture that Grand Rapids has to offer. Connect, discover, learn, create, and share. The Grand Rapids Community Media Center.
City Connection. I'm glad to have with me our Public Works Director, Mr. John Gorney. Am I saying that right?
You are.
Okay,
Yep.
good. And so John's been with the city for over a year now, managing and leading our Public Works Department. And what's really important, I think it's timely actually, that we're talking to you after the last couple weeks and after having a major snowstorm. As we get started today, I want to say thanks to you, your leadership, and really to just the entire department. Leading us through what was a massive snowstorm. Let's see, is it officially 32 inches of snow?
Officially, I think we're well over 67 total for the year. Yes,
but during the snowstorm?
We were over 30 inches.
Yeah,
yes.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah. So anyway, so thank you for your work. Thank you for your leadership. Glad to have you here today.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start by talking a little bit about you, then
Sure.
we'll talk about the Public Works Department. So for folks who are watching and they don't know what we do in our Public Works Department, maybe you can give them an overview.
Absolutely.
And then we'll talk about some of the critical things that you're working on in this beautiful blustery winter season. So
Okay.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about you. You were saying that you are from West Michigan?
From the Grand Rapids, born and raised in Grand Rapids. Lived here most of my life, other than a couple years outside of the state. But from here, yep, I've been in Public Works for 30 years this year.
Wow.
And yep, finally made it to the big city, so I'm happy to be here. It's been just over a year.
Great. And so
Yeah.
before coming to city, you were at Kentwood?
With the city of Kentwood for
City
almost
of Kentwood.
15 years, yes,
Wow.
as the director there.
Nice, nice. Well, it's good to have you at the city.
It's good to be here, thank you.
So Public Works, it's a department that covers a lot of different services at the city. I always
Yes.
say it's one of the departments that has really quite a bit of contact with community, with
do.
residents, and really important services that you provide. So why don't you give us an overview of Public Works?
Yeah, a brief overview of our Public Works Department. We provide some really important, necessary services. Not necessarily the most glamorous, but they are necessary and important.
Yeah.
So on the streets maintenance side of things, we do a lot of routine things such as street sweeping, patching potholes, cleaning up dead animals. And then this time of year, of course, winter operations.
Yeah.
And that was a big lift for us, and it tends to be when we have those big storms. But our staff is resilient, and I'm very proud of the work that they do. And then on the other side of the house, we have the materials management, so refuse, recycling, yard waste. We have a composting facility. And this time of year, we're busy cleaning up Christmas trees that are left over.
Yeah, it's such important work. So, let's first, let's go backwards. Let's first
Yes.
talk about our refuse and recycling and composting.
Yes.
Some people don't know that we have a composting site. It's been operational 2 years.
Couple
is that
years
right?
now, yep.
And so, for people who don't know that we do composting, why don't you tell us about that? Because it really is a great partnership with a third party.
It is.
Yeah.
So we have a private contractor that manages the site for us, but all the material comes from within the city. So we have a really good, robust yard waste collection that we do with our own staff. And then residents have the ability to go to the site themselves and drop off material if they're able to do that. And then that material is then composted, and then we offer once a year, residents can pick up a yard of compost at no cost.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. And then the
that's
third
fantastic.
party sells some of it.
They do sell some of it, and then we do get the city receives some proceeds back from that as well.
Yeah, and I know we just did this a couple months ago, and it was a huge hit. We also did, for the first time, allow the community to come and pick up large logs and reuse wood that we had over at the site.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an exciting part too, because over the years it's been a massive collection of these large logs. So it's nice to see those clear out, and then we can continue to use the site for potentially more composting.
Yeah, it's a great site. And for people who aren't familiar with where it is, I know we always say Domtar, but
Yeah.
it's over on Butterworth.
2001 Butterworth is the location.
Yeah, and it's open during the week. Even now, people can take.
Yep, absolutely. This is new. I think this is the first year through the winter, so Monday through Friday 7:30 to 4:30.
Yeah, that's right. It is new. I remember James talking to the City Commission about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Recycling is an important, out of everyone in the county, the city of Grand Rapids, we're really proud. We have the highest recycling rate.
Yep.
And we work in partnership with the county and use their facility.
We do.
Anything you want to share about recycling? I know I'm always reminding people, I should say, to make sure that we're not contaminating recycling.
Yes, contaminating, throwing garbage in the recycling. It can be a little bit misleading because our recycling is funded through, it's millage funded.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a direct cost that residents see. And that can be misleading. We're in the process right now of hiring a recycling coordinator for our department to help out with recycling education, because we have some goals that we want to obtain. But overall, the City of Grand Rapids, we do a great job for the customers that we have with the recycling.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we do have a refuse millage, and we use those funds, I should say, for a number of services that we provide, including recycling, but also street sweeping, alley cleanup, and some other services.
Yep, some graffiti removal as well.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. That's
You're
an
welcome.
important one, too. So let's go to winter services.
Yes.
I know we're in the heart of that. You want to talk a little bit about some of the work going on right now with winter services.
Yeah. Winter operations is one of my favorite things that we do. It's our opportunity to shine. I tell our staff, if it's like if the fire department has a fire and they don't show up, that's going to have a huge impact on the people that are having the fire. And if we don't show up for winter operations, we have an impact on the entire city. Over this last winter so far, and especially during the storms that we've had, our staff has been fantastic, responsive, dedicated, resilient. They worked some long hours, but they've been resilient. So we did a great job. Our goal is always to have everything cleaned up within 24 hours after the snow stops, and we were very close to that. And that was significant, because we had, as you mentioned, we had a lot of snow to move after that last event.
Yeah, and it happened over the holiday.
It did.
And so we had staff who were really working.
Giving up
Friday,
time with their
Saturday,
families.
Sunday, Monday,
Yes.
giving up time with their families during
Yeah.
the holiday to make sure that we had our streets cleared and that people were safe.
Yep, and as I mentioned, resilient. They were fantastic. Everybody showed up, everybody did the work, and they were happy to be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very dedicated.
Yeah, so I know more so when I was a city commissioner than mayor, I would get a lot of calls from folks asking when their street would be plowed. So can you talk a little bit about like primary, secondary, tertiary streets and how we schedule out our snow plowing?
Yes.
Just so people know, if you're on a cul-de-sac, it might be a little bit longer than if you're on a main kind of primary road in the city.
Primary or first attention routes, we call them, are based on traffic volumes. So it makes sense that we handle those roads first, and then as we're able, we get into the secondary or the local streets, and then into cul-de-sacs. If we can, we'll schedule the cul-de-sacs and secondary streets at the same time, just based on staffing and where we are in the storm. You know, we can't predict when and how it's going to snow, but we have to keep those in order of priority. And then also it's important to note that the de-icing materials that we use, so salt and liquid calcium chloride, we only generally use on major streets.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. And I know I've been called at times when someone lives on a street and they're medically fragile, or there's some other critical issue on that street that we need to be aware of. And people, if they are concerned about that, they can call 311.
They can, and we'll absolutely be responsive to those needs.
Yeah, I know over the years, there's been issues that have come up, and we always try to work with the resident or the neighborhood to make sure that we get to those.
Yep, absolutely.
So I know we're already probably 6 weeks in, but it's a good reminder to explain to people why we have odd, even parking.
Yes.
Your staff deal with that more than anyone else.
Yes.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So odd even parking during an event is really helpful for us when we can come back the next day and plow the other side of the street, which doesn't necessarily help us out with our 24-hour goal, so we'll be a little bit beyond that. But when it's not snowing, we can go back and we can do some street sweeping, some street cleanup, make sure the drains are clear so that when the snow does melt, the water goes away. And then same with cleaning up the debris and the leaves that are in the road. It helps keep those drains clear as well.
Yeah, and our goal is to plow curb to curb. So
Absolutely.
that's always our goal. I know sometimes in the past there have been, we've just had so much snow that we haven't been able to do that, and then the street gets more narrow and more narrow, and it's really difficult to get emergency vehicles down it, fire trucks down it, and people can't park. And so I know sometimes people will call and be like, well, it's not snowing, why do I have to park on the other side? And it's because we really want to get in and try to clean up that street.
Yeah, it gives us the opportunity to get in and get the other side cleaned up once those cars are moved.
Yeah. So 2 other things, we just have a few minutes left. Catch basins and then sidewalks. So catch basins, I know we put out a call a few weeks ago. Wanted to remind people that it's really important that we clear those catch basins. Of course, we try to do it, but we can't get to all of them ourselves. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, there are thousands of them out there. So yeah, it helps if the residents, if the neighbors can go out and clean those catch basins, whether it's removing leaves and debris or getting snow and ice, so that when we have the thaw, the water will go away and we don't end up with dangerous conditions in the roadway.
Yeah, and all of us have seen that. We've seen a catch basin that is clogged, and then there's this huge pool of water, and in the winter that becomes ice.
It does.
It becomes extremely dangerous, but then also it's just not good for us trying to get those streets cleared.
It becomes even more difficult to get them clear. Yes.
Yeah. So sidewalks,
Yes.
We do have a pilot
We
program
do.
for snow plowing some sidewalks, but our rule is still that it's your responsibility as
It
a
is.
homeowner to clear the sidewalk. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
So overall, we have over 900 miles of sidewalks in the city, and we expanded the program this year. So it is still in pilot phase, but we expanded, and we're plowing with 2 separate contracts, over 170 miles of sidewalks this year. And so far, our contractors have been responsive, and the response that we're getting back from the community has been very positive.
Oh, good. For shoveling your sidewalk, we know that there are some individuals who live in our city that either they have some type of handicap, they can't do it, they're elderly. We do have support for individuals who need help. Do you want to talk about that? Encourage people to call 311 if they need help?
Absolutely. Call 311. There are some local organizations that are certainly willing to help, local churches that are willing to help. And we do get those calls as well, so we can help direct people to the right resources.
Yeah, it's just so important. I know all of us have seen this in our neighborhoods where we have a portion of the sidewalk that isn't shoveled, and people go out in the street. Again, it's really dangerous.
Very
Especially for
dangerous.
little ones and people where there's a concern about falling. Another reason why we want our sidewalks shoveled is that people can walk safely.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and even though it's winter, get those boots on and still get outside and walk. It's
Yes.
really important to get outside.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy, thank you. And then let's see, make sure I covered everything. We only have a minute left. Did I miss anything with catch basins or snow plowing? I know that you told me earlier that we are out trying to sweep the streets right now.
Yep.
A little bit unusual.
It is unusual for this time of the year, but we're taking advantage of the weather we have, and in fact, we have sunshine today, so
Yeah.
we are sweeping the streets as much as we can while we can.
Yeah, we had a lot of the leaves fall late this year.
They did.
Seasons are a little tricky with the extreme weather events that we're experiencing, so we're trying to get out there and get those cleaned up.
And we just adjust as best we can.
Yeah, and one final thing about shoveling, I should say. Some of us live around rapid bus stops. Some of our bus stops we have as part of the pilot, but there's a lot of them that still need to be shoveled. So if you
That's
live
correct.
by one and you want to shovel that and make sure it's clear for people riding the bus, we encourage you to do that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That and fire hydrants. Make
And
sure your
fire
fire hydrants are
hydrants.
cleared, yes.
Yes, fire hydrants. Thank you for reminding me about
you're
that.
welcome.
So, and with that reminder, we'll finish up and we'll be back for additional Q&A in a minute.
The Wealthy Theater is Grand Rapids' local movie theater and performance center. Since 1998, it has been a host to nationally touring music groups, local theater performances, and a variety of community events. Today, the Wealthy Theater is not only a landmark community treasure with historic significance, but a pioneer in the infusion of technology and traditional theater. Underneath the elegance and classic sensibility that defines Wealthy Theater, there is a matrix of new technologies. The theater is completely digital and outfitted with cameras and microphones for concerts, theater and comedy troupes, speakers and lecturers, and so much more. Experience all that Wealthy Theater has to offer. And bring a friend. Be surprised by the Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is a world of music. We aim to shine a light on underserved musical artists in a non-commercial format with no advertisements. Volunteers come in to create personalized music programming that broadcasts over the air at 88.1 FM to West Michigan and via the internet to listeners all over the world. These listeners sponsor our efforts, keeping WYCE independent and community-owned. Musicians use the station to broaden their audience and build support for their latest projects by submitting their music to be included in our broadcast and performing live in studio. Businesses find their customers through underwriting, nonprofits inform the community to their mission, and listeners stay informed about local events. We believe that music is a powerful force that creates quality relationships in our community, that speaks to our emotions, and provides the soundtrack to our lives.
To City Connection with Mayor Bliss and our guest John Gorney, which is the Department Director of Public Works for the City of Grand Rapids. So John, we have some questions from some of our citizens today.
Okay.
And the first one, which is important because I need to know this as well, but how long does the Christmas tree drop off last? And then what are the locations?
Yep.
And this is from Carl.
All right, thanks Carl for the question. The Christmas tree drop-off lasts until the end of January, so through the 31st. And then we have 4 drop-off locations in the city. We have 4 parks. So we have Lincoln, JC, Riverside, and Huff Parks.
Okay.
And then there's also the option of purchasing a tag. They're $2.50, and then they can leave them right at the curb in front of their house on their normal collection day.
And where do they purchase the tags?
They can be purchased at City Hall.
Okay.
Do we still sell those at Ace Hardware? I know we have the yard waste bags.
We do.
And but not the tags. They have to go to City Hall.
Yeah, that's going to be the easiest.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, this is another question for John. I've had a pothole in front of my house for a year and it's only getting bigger. How do I get this on your radar? This is from Pearl.
Well, I'm sorry that it's been there for a year. We want to be responsive and get that taken care of as soon as possible. Ideally 311, and if that's not working, I can give the direct number to our department, and then also my email. I can share that as well, and we can get it taken care of right away.
Okay.
Yeah, and Pearl, she's also welcome to just call my office.
Okay.
456-3168, and my assistant can always connect with John's department to make sure that gets on the list.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then third question is, my neighbor parks in front of my house, which is normally fine, but they haven't been moving during the big snowstorms and probably the odd even, and plows have been having to go around it, and it leaves a huge areas in front of my house that aren't getting plowed. I talked to him and he said he would, but then he doesn't. Can you warn them to move it somehow? I'd hate to get them in a ticket, but they're not responding to my asks. And this is from Heidi.
Yeah, so that would be best to go through 311, and there are 2 departments that do handle parking complaints. Also, Mobile GR is one of the departments, and then the police department is the other. And I'm not sure about warnings, but if they do call, they'll likely get a ticket if they're parked illegally.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is really important. I'm glad that question was asked because, as we said earlier, it is important to have those moved and to comply with those odd even rules so that we can get that snow plowed out of the street.
And the odd even dates, they'll start and go through April 1st?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and another question. We just had someone graffiti over an electrical box that had an artist decorated on our neighborhood or in our neighborhood. Is there a way to have that cleaned up without destroying the art? And this is from Ben.
Most likely not. We'd be happy to give it a try, but most likely no, unfortunately.
That's a bummer.
That is a bummer.
Yeah. All right, and then this question is actually for you, Mayor Bliss.
Okay.
It says, hi there. If possible, I would love to hear about Mayor Bliss's perspective on the future of public transit in the city in the next 10 to 20 years. With our population growing, now would it be a great time to begin prioritizing less car-centric solutions to transportation and build a truly urban, walkable city? And this is from Stefan Pawelka in Creston neighborhood.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And I do serve on the Rapid board, and that is exactly what we've been talking about. So we're going through a number of planning processes right now. We just completed about a year ago an assessment, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're providing transit that meets the needs of the community. And what we know is that a fixed route system isn't always what is going to meet the needs of individuals, especially if they need access to public transit after the service hours.
Right.
So we are looking at, we're always looking at on the fixed route side, hours of operation, intervals between, how often the bus comes. But we also are looking at and doing some pilot projects with on-demand, knowing that in portions of the city, there are different needs, and so we're looking at what can we do with smaller vehicles, more on-demand vehicles. So we are exploring that. And then at the city, we have and will continue to invest in infrastructure for bicycle lanes and safe crosswalks, and making sure that we're building streets that are very walkable and aren't 5-lane streets.
Right.
So we're even now looking at making some changes to Division. You'll see likely some street reconstruction on North Monroe to make that more walkable. That's always a priority to us. And then also looking at other micromobility options. So we have the scooters, we now have e-bikes that people can utilize. Clearly we're still doing the Dash. That likely will change some just based on demand.
Right.
But my vision is that we need multiple options for people that meet the unique needs of the individuals, and that's really the ultimate goal. But I couldn't agree more. We want to be a city that is safe for pedestrians, where more people are feeling like they can commute safely, and investing in that infrastructure that's needed to do that is really essential. I would love to see more protected bike lanes. We'll start doing a little more of that, but really finding the right streets for that is critical. So it takes a lot of time and planning. And then one other thing about transit. So the Rapid is a multi-jurisdictional service area of largely the 6 metro cities,
Right.
And then some of the townships that pay into the system. I have said this for years, that there are people that need access to public transit throughout our entire county. And there's a real interconnection between affordable housing, access to transportation, and a whole host of other things. But we really need to be looking at public transit, access to that, and housing together. And so a couple months ago, probably about 6 weeks ago, the county is moving forward with a small task force to look at an assessment of countywide mobility needs, and I'm serving on that as well. But ultimately, we need options for individuals throughout the county. Whether you live outside of one of the 6 cities and the service area, or you work outside it, we should be able to make sure that people have access to public transit or transportation needs that meet what they need for themselves and their family.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And this is a good little place to plug in that they are adding a new route, Bus 33, or
Yes.
Route 33, which is the Walker Industrial area, which I think, and they worked with the community and the business owners in that area to make it accessible for workers to get over there. So
Yeah.
that's going to be starting.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So we have a large cluster of businesses over in Walker.
Right.
And this route will be able to support those individuals to get to those
Just
jobs.
those businesses.
We also are making some changes with Dash on the west side to make sure that there's access over on Leonard and better access here on Bridge Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, well, this is another question, and this is from Tom from Mayor Bliss. I can't watch the meeting in the afternoon because I'm at work. Is there a place to watch the meetings after they have aired on the city channel?
Yes, so you can watch them live, obviously, during the meetings. So we have a number of meetings during the day. All of our standing committee meetings happen during the day. So tomorrow we have a commission meeting. It'll start in the morning, 8 a.m. with our appointments committee. We have a fiscal committee after that. We have community development committee, and then we have committee of the whole. All of those are on our city Facebook page and YouTube page.
Okay.
You can watch them in real time, or you can go back and watch them. So they will stay up on the page, and you can go back and watch them anytime. And then the 2 p.m. meeting is really, we finalize all the decisions that were made in the morning. Typically, we have public hearings, and you can always go back and watch those if you can't watch them in real time or show up at the meeting.
Okay, perfect.
And I should say, that's also true for our planning commission. So our planning commission, they actually meet in the afternoon as well. They have a number of public hearings typically during their meetings. Those are aired on our Facebook page. They happen at our city commission chambers on Thursdays. And you can always go back and watch those as well. And that's true for our public safety committee meeting and economic development project team.
Perfect. All right, so this is a question for John.
All right.
How do we encourage the other communities to do better with their recycling? Is Grand Rapids taking a leadership role? Can citizens help? And this is from Holly.
Yeah, citizens can absolutely help just by spreading the word on how important it is to recycle. If we can keep trash from going into the landfill, better for all of us long term. And a good resource would be Kent County Department of Public Works, because they do have recycling education people that will certainly help out with the other communities. And one area too is depending on the hauler that they have. So outside of the city of Grand Rapids, most cities use private haulers. If they could reach out to their private hauler, they too will help out with the education piece and how important it is to recycle over throwing it away.
Okay. All right.
And I'll just add one other thing, speaking about our partners at Kent County. So Kent County Department of Public Works, they're going through a process right now to look at building a sustainable business park. And one of the goals is to reduce waste going into the landfill. And so part of their vision to be more of a have a more sustainable refuse circle, I should say.
Yeah.
They're looking at a number of things, and one of their goals is to increase recycling throughout the entire county. And I know that they are looking at ways to do that in partnership with other communities,
Yes.
townships, and other cities, but also the private haulers.
Okay. All right, and we have one more question really quick for the mayor. I often like to hike at Huff Park. There was a huge branch across the trail, too big for me to move just a couple of days ago. This is April. So is that probably a 311?
Yeah, April, you can call 311 or call my office. Again, it's 456-3168. Typically, our Parks Department will get out there and move that.
Okay.
We also have a Forestry Department. They work closely together. I don't know if it's on the trail portion, which is the boardwalk, but we'll want to get that removed as soon as possible because we don't want any damage to the boardwalk. And then the asphalt part, that will be easier probably to remove because we won't have the kind of wetlands around where the trail is.
Right. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Gorney, right?
Yep.
Okay, for being with us today. We appreciate you answering
Thank you.
the questions and giving us an update. And we'll be back right soon.
How do you build a strong local food economy? Meet Chris. Chris is opening Osteria Rosa, a locally sourced Italian restaurant in a building brought back to life by 616 Development. But he doesn't know any local farmers to supply him with food year-round. This is Melissa. Melissa runs the Fulton Street Farmers Market and publishes a long list, even in the dead of winter, of available produce, meats, bakery goods, and more on the Rapidian. This is Amy. Amy wants to do more to support the farmers in her local food economy. Amy talks to Melissa, who introduces her to farmers at the Fulton Street Farmers Market, and Amy, in turn, publishes their stories, also on the Rapidian. Chris hears about the Rapidian and now has access to a local grocery list and information that he needs to make connections with local farmers. He feeds his patrons with local food year-round. Connections multiply. Meals are shared. A stronger local food economy is built.
And welcome back to City Connection. We have another question from George for Mayor Bliss, and it says, can Mayor Bliss speak to the recent letter that was sent to the city regarding homelessness and panhandling here in Grand Rapids?
Oh yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. It was, man, time goes by so fast. Over a month ago, the City Commission, myself included, received a letter from the Grand Rapids Chamber, signed by a number of business leaders, organizational leaders in our community, expressing concern about panhandling downtown, some inappropriate behaviors around trespass, indecent exposure, as well as concern about people sleeping on the sidewalks and that it's unsafe, especially going into the winter months and how cold it is outside, and asked the City Commission to consider passing an ordinance around aggressive panhandling. Particularly around certain areas. So as individuals are approaching an ATM or at a bank, when they are going to their car or leaving their car inside a parking ramp, if they're eating outside, and then also to consider an ordinance around a sit-lie ordinance, saying that you couldn't sit or lay down and sleep on sidewalks. So we had a large number of folks come to the City Commission and request us to consider that. We listened. That's my job, is always to listen. I know people have different opinions about pretty much every issue that comes before me, including this one. And so myself, City Commission, we listened. We followed up with city staff, with our police chief, and really tried to get to the heart of what people were concerned about. And some things really rose to the top, and one concern was around safety. And we heard from a lot of individuals downtown saying that they don't see much of a police presence, that when they do call, when there is an issue, they don't get a quick response. Chief Winstrom followed up with that and redeployed some officers to have a larger presence and walk around downtown. And then we looked at what are the legitimate concerning behaviors right now that we need to respond to. So Chief Winstrom followed up on that as well and said, look, we already have ordinances on the books around certain things like harassment and trespassing and indecent exposure, and we need to be following up on those. So we had a conversation at our public safety meeting in December, right after we had this request and these letters come in, and we did a lot of education. So here's 26 ordinances already on the books that we have that address, not all, but some of the concerns that people brought to our attention. Around safety and presence, the chief responded to that. Some of the complaints we received was around cleanliness, so our Public Works Department responded to that and said if there are piles that are sitting there and they don't belong to anyone, please let us know. And we do have practices already in place around cleanliness. And then the city manager said that it's a priority that we respond with resources that we already have and enforce what we have, but also work with our nonprofit organizations that support and help people experiencing homelessness, because ultimately the solution to homelessness is housing.
Right.
So how do we take a look at all of the different services that we have in our city and identify where the gaps are, and then how do we move people from being unhoused or unstably housed into more stable housing as quickly as possible? And to me, that is the real solution. So tomorrow, at the end of our Committee of the Whole meeting, which starts at 10, we will be having a presentation on exactly that. So what has the city been doing? What is the history of our work around supporting individuals experiencing homelessness? How much money do we already spend? We spend millions of dollars in partnership with our local nonprofit organizations. We'll talk a little bit about some of the work of the COC and the Essential Needs Task Force. But then really, how do we look at the system as a whole to identify what are we doing well, where are we getting good outcomes, where are the gaps, and then how do we really think creatively about filling those gaps? And then how do we bring people together to do that?
Right.
So, I know people reached out to me and they asked if we were passing an ordinance. We have nothing, we have no ordinance right now that we are considering or that has been brought forward by our city attorney. So there's a process when we pass local laws or ordinances, and whenever that happens, there's always opportunity for public comment and public hearings. But we're not at this time exploring any ordinances. So we're still looking at what can we do to address the legitimate concerns that we heard, but also provide more effective services to help those individuals
Right.
Find a safe place to live.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Instead of finding them and putting them in a deeper debt, if we
Yeah.
can start finding them with tickets and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like I've said to a number of folks I've talked to, whether you are housed or not, if you break the law, our police department should respond.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's not a matter of, whether somebody's status of where they live or if they don't have a place to live. But being very concerned about making sure that we have the resources to support the individuals that really need help. I mean, very often individuals who are unhoused, they're vulnerable already, and they have, not all of them, but some of them have serious mental health issues, substance use, and we need to make sure that we have services that meet those needs.
And help them with that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It says another question here from Matt is, with this trial date for Officer Schur set for March, when do we expect a verdict?
Yeah, Matt, so just to be clear, the city, myself, City Commission, City Attorney, we are not involved in the trial.
Right.
We're not involved in this case at all. So the Kent County prosecutor, prosecuting attorney, is the one that moved forward with charges. The trial will be within the circuit court, and the answer is I don't know. I don't know how long it will take. I don't. Your guess is as good
Right.
as mine.
Yeah.
I anticipate it'll take time, but ultimately I don't know how long it'll take for the jury that's selected to make a decision
Right.
and make a verdict.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Is there anything? Let's talk about downtown safety and
Yeah.
something that the chief had brought up, or is there anything you want to share with that, or?
Yeah, just if you're concerned about a situation, please call us. I know some people have reached out to me about an incident that they experienced, and if you feel unsafe, please reach out and call 911 or 311. If you're concerned about somebody's welfare, please let us know so that we can check on them and make sure they're okay. The chief is, kind of looking at deployment of officers to make sure that we have presence downtown. I know the sheriff's department has been out a couple times with their, with some of their units to just add more presence. But we need to make sure that not just downtown, but all of our neighborhoods are safe.
Right.
And so I know as the chief continues to hire and get those vacancies filled, we're going to be making sure that we are able to implement neighborhood policing and that we have availability of officers to respond to incidents anywhere in the city.
Right.
That's really important that we're able to do that.
Right. And talking about safety, and this doesn't really go with that, but I just want to warn everybody that, or give a heads up, not a warn, but the city has reactivated a lot of the downtown traffic lights.
Yes.
And I saw this happen yesterday, and I think someone was expecting it to be a stop and go and look and just walk, and almost walked in front of oncoming traffic because it's now green light and
Yes.
staying, so just to be aware of that. That's going around all over downtown areas. So.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, we took a lot of those street lights and made them blinking and a four-way stop, and you're right, many of them have been reactivated, so please be aware of that,
Right.
both as a driver and a pedestrian.
Yes, absolutely. And then also, I think probably the last thing I have on my list is kind of sharing, we have a lot of new legislation coming out of Lansing, and you said that there's some priorities and things coming out of there. Would you like to share any of that with us?
Yeah, so I obviously work really closely with individuals in Lansing, and we have a legislative priority list that we have at the city with the new leadership and with Democrats now having a majority in the House and the Senate, and then obviously the governor's a Democrat. We think there's an opportunity to look at some important issues. So some of the priorities we have and you can go and look at our legislative priority list, we'll be updating that soon. But my hope is that with the new leadership, that we'll be able to take a look at some of the laws that have been passed in the past that we would like to see maybe amended or changed. So over the past decade, there have been a lot of preemption bills that have passed that take away local control. So we're hoping that some of those bills that took away local control will be revisited, and that some of that control will come back to local units of government. Affordable housing and support for individuals experiencing homelessness is a top priority. So we know that there was a housing package that was passed at the end of last year in December. We know that we have more work to do. We need to have more tools to build the kind of housing that we need, especially when the demand is so great, but also supportive housing. So one of the solutions to homelessness is individuals need access to, not everyone, but some of them need access to supportive housing. We know that that's a huge gap in our community. We don't have enough supportive housing units. So we're hopeful that the state will make that a priority. Crime prevention, so we're hopeful that the state will continue to support crime prevention efforts, mental health co-response teams, and really looking at providing more services to individuals experiencing a mental health crisis.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that the legislature will pass Elliott Larson and look at some protections for individuals who experience discrimination, especially within our LGBTQ plus community, and then gun control.
Okay.
So I know the governor has already talked about this. I think there are things that we can do to make sure that we don't have guns that are unlocked around young people, and safe and secure places for guns, as well as, if somebody has concerns about somebody having a gun, there's an option for them to call and to report that. So I know they have a long list that they'll be taking on, but hopefully they'll be able to work really closely with not just Grand Rapids, but other cities to pass some good legislation that will support a lot of the complex issues that we have.
Okay. All right. All right. Was there any other little tidbits of fun things to share for the city, or do you think we've got it all?
I think thinking about the next few months, again, I just encourage people to get out, enjoy the parks and the trails and World of Winter, stay healthy. I know that when we don't have a lot of sunshine, we have an uptick in seasonal depression. Yeah. What helps with that is connecting with people that you love and care about, but also physical exercise and just trying to take care of yourself, even if you don't have a lot of sunshine.
Right, yeah.
And then, we also have Laugh Fest coming back.
Oh, that's right.
It's a great, it's coming up in just a couple months, but it supports Gilda's, which is an incredible organization in our city that we want to make sure is available to individuals experiencing grief, loss, or cancer. So that will come up in March, and then hopefully spring will be here before we know it.
Perfect. Yeah. And I also like to do one quick invite to everybody. If anybody would like to come and tour here at GRTV, we are having an open house on Saturday, January 21st, and we would love for the community to come in and interact with some of the volunteers and see what our studio looks like. And that is going to be Saturday, January 21st, and that is an open house from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we do prefer that you register so we can have an idea of how many people are coming, and you can register on the GRTV Facebook page, which is GRTV Access. So thank you so much. Yeah. There's a lot of information today, and good information from Director Gorney, and get out there and enjoy the winter, and lots of good stuff with World of Winter, and we thank you for joining in today. You have a great afternoon.